This is the Friday, April 29th, 2016 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us now is Senior Market Analyst John Roach. John, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
And we are excited to have you. We've got a lot of great questions here from our followers on Twitter and Facebook. And I wanted to kick it off with a question from Brian in Colorado. He wonders, at what level are most farmers profitable in November beans?
Ooh, that's a difficult question to answer. The first thing I would do is I'd send him to look at the University of Illinois Farm Doc publications, because they do a very good job of covering cost. I think as you're hitting this $10 cash area on soybeans, you're starting to trigger some minimal profit levels for people. I don't think it's anything to get excited about, but there we have crossed up into the black for many farmers, and it all depends, of course, on land cost.
You bet. Now, you mentioned during the program that farmers really probably shouldn't have a whole lot of new crop beans sold yet. Those Novi beans probably should be just in the bag or in the field as we stand here today, because you think we'll find another notch higher here in the new crop beans?
Well, I just couldn't, it didn't make any sense to me to recommend that farmers sell new crop production in February, March, even early April, when they'd be recording a loss. There's no reason to rush to make a bad sale. Wait and see if maybe something comes along. And surprise, surprise, something has come along. And so it's been a good thing to have not been in a real rush and been really frightened, as some people thought during the winter. And but now we've reached some levels. We hit sell signals on soybeans. We're in a sell signal tonight. And so if growers are at price levels that they'd like to be making some sales and they don't have hardly anything on the books at all, the green light is on to go ahead and dribble some sales. But don't sell like the market is done. The market is still very much alive on weather issues in South America. It's very much alive on currency changes. It's very much alive on better demand than what people thought was going to be out there. We're already seeing the crop being reduced in Brazil. We're seeing the crop reduced in Argentina because of too much rain. And so there are some things that are at work here that are positive, and we're still looking at very low price levels relative to where prices have been in the last 10 years.
Okay, so that's new crop. We've got a question here from Tim in Crookston, Minnesota. He's wondering, should producers be selling every kernel of last year's crop, either corn or beans? Are you aggressively sold on either?
No, we've been selling enough to pay bills. We've been selling enough as they've reached some people's targets. We've had 3 of 5 sell signals, but we weren't very aggressive on the first 2. We became a little more aggressive on the most recent one. As I said, we're still in a soybean sell signal. We were in a corn sell signal a week ago that lasted through the high of the market. So we felt that was a very good opportunity to be making sales. But we think now you let the market come back up again, and on the next sell signal, you step up and you make another round of sales, and you still have some left, I think, for summer weather, which is when you really tend to have the most exciting prices if you get the right kind of weather.
Right, get something to really blast this thing off.
But the idea that we're going to rush out to sell crops at very low profit levels or no profit levels, and we're going to take that money and put it in the bank and earn nothing with it, to me that doesn't make any sense. So it makes more sense to me to hold on to inventory. In fact, I bought some inventory from December corn for 2017 and 2018 because I could buy it on the futures market for those years cheaper than you can raise it in the field. And so it seemed to me to be a better way to farm. And we don't have to worry about the weather risk on it.
Right.
And so these are very cheap price levels. 6 weeks ago, we were at the cheapest prices in 8 years on corn. I mean, what's the rush? So no, I think that there have been people have been rushing to sell everything. We're going to go cheap and we're going to stay cheap for years. I'm on the other side. I think we're going to struggle to raise enough to supply the demand. Now, we've been worried about China, but let's face it, the Chinese market didn't collapse the way everybody thought it might. In fact, it's starting to come back already. So, this market is not as negative as what people would have had you believe in the winter.
Well, now let's turn that question on its head. We had the question on the show from Gary Vetter. How do we manage these losses as we look out to the future for livestock producers, dairy producers, poultry producers, how aggressive do we need to be in locking in pricing today on feedstuffs, on inputs?
Well, I think on the input side, you've got to be really careful here, because I think that, again, you passed up, if you didn't buy a bunch of inputs in recent months, you passed up the cheapest prices in 8 years. And I don't know why you did that, but it wasn't my advice. So you need to think in terms of, well, how much risk do I have of these inputs going cheaper, and what's the possibility that they could go lots higher? And that possibility is what really scares me for the livestock producer. The complacent, I don't have any inventory of feed livestock producer could get killed if there's a weather problem this summer. And so I think that inventory management for livestock producer is really important. And if you don't have your feed needs covered for the rest of the summer, you're taking bigger risks than I would.
Okay. And when you get that buy signal, when we get a step back in this market, would you be looking like you did buy out 2017, 2018? Is your belief in demand strong enough to last the next 2 or 3 years?
My fear of buying $3.95 corn is not very great.
Okay.
They may get me, but they're not going to get me for very much. Mm-hmm. My potential with $3.95 corn is that it could go to $7. You see, so the risk reward of owning inventory that far out, in my opinion, is a very easy calculated risk if you're in the livestock business.
And same story on crude, on farm diesel if needed.
Well, that market's run up quite a little bit. I mean, we've almost doubled the price, mm-hmm. and not quite, but we've moved up quite a little bit on crude oil, and so. Yeah, I think you have to think in terms of the idea of $20 crude. Forget it. We're not doing that. The oil companies have gone through the period of really big supplies, and they've got it back under control, and they've got the market moving in their way. And so it would seem to me that energy prices, the bottoms we made this winter, we'll look back years from now and wonder, what were we thinking?
Why didn't I buy 25 years of supply? Put in that 12,000 gallon tank.
What were we thinking?
Yes. Well, we've got a final question here from Marty in Buxton, North Dakota. And you talked about how China doesn't appear to be failing like everybody thought it was 6 months ago. He's asking what's happening, what's going on with China's commodity markets. They have been interesting to follow over the past few weeks.
They've been wild.
They've been nuts.
You know, we learned a long time ago that the people in China can trade, and they trade. And so rebar, of all the crazy things, that we were at the Dalian Futures Exchange, I think it was 5 years ago, and I was surprised that they traded a contract of rebar, the steel used to reinforce concrete. And the price has doubled in a very short period of time. I mean, so they've tried to slow down they sent some tweets out to slow down some of the speculative demand in commodities. But again, the Chinese market, the demise of China looks much exaggerated at the moment.
Okay. Is it watching these commodity markets go nuts? Is that more speculative fever than it is true underlying strength, or is it a mix of both happening to carry them to the crazy levels of open interest we've seen?
It's both, but what people typically don't buy because it's cheap. People buy because it's rising. And so when prices start to rise, then you start to trigger buying, and you start to trigger buying programs and technical demand that maybe doesn't have anything to do with usage, but later we find out that, surprise, surprise, well, there was increased usage. But typically the technical side of it moves quicker and is more apparent than the fundamental side, and we see the fundamentals maybe later. Okay, and we see the same thing here with the buy-side programs that come in from the large funds that take positions on the board all the time. Exactly, and we saw in today's Commitment of Traders report that in the crop markets that the funds, speculative funds, were major buyers, and on the other side we had farmers that were selling inventory out. And so we now have all the speculative funds, or the speculative funds are net long in all of our crop markets, except wheat, and but they're taking those shorts off rather quickly too. So it's technically driven over short periods of time, but fundamentals eventually rule the roost. Okay. John, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us this week. Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks to all of you for sending in your questions via Facebook and Twitter. Please continue to do so, and we will get expert analysis right to you. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.